Welcome back to the BTS Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Andrea. With me, as always, is Morgan.
Hey.
On August 27th, BTS released a new remix of Butter featuring American rapper Megan Thee Stallion. This was unexpected because everybody believed the Butter era was over now that Permission to Dance had been released after that. And we only found out about the remix about 3 days before the release. Before we go into the story of how everyone found out about that, let's talk about our reactions to the song. What do you think of the song?
Well, I hate Megan Thee Stallion, so unfortunately I have to admit that I liked it. It might actually even be a little bit better. I think it feels a little more modern, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other one feels kind of like just a pop song, maybe even an 80s pop song, which is fine with me. I like that kind of music, but I could see how some people might be turned off. It might feel a little dated to them, and maybe this version feels more contemporary.
Yeah, I thought the original Butter could have used more rap to begin with, because the original is kind of too short, and I know why they did that. I'm sure they wanted it to be the right length for radio, but I think, yeah, adding her made it seem more full, and her verse fit in really well with everything else. Like, it didn't clash with the style or anything. She has a very fun personality, and the way she raps is definitely matched the vibe with BTS. So I think it went really well, because sometimes they have collabs and it doesn't quite hit the mark. Like, the person is barely in it, or it just seems like they didn't really add anything. So I think this remix of Butter was really successful. And if you're from outside the US, maybe you don't know who Megan Thee Stallion is, but she's an American female rapper from Houston, Texas, and she's known for songs like WAP and Savage and Hot Girl Summer. So she's known for pretty raunchy rap songs, basically.
Right.
She's 26 years old, which means she was born in 1995, and I just thought it was really weird that she's the same age as Jimin and V, pretty much.
I thought she was older. She seems older to me.
She does seem way more mature than that. She seems like a 30-year-old. So I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. They're actually she's a similar age to members of BTS, though. And they didn't have a MV, but they did release, they're calling it a visualizer. And it's kind of like a lyric video, but they didn't show the lyrics. But it's just showing the Butter logo, and it showed the times when she rapped and when they sang. So it seemed to get a lot of views. So I think people are really receiving the song pretty well. And I thought they could have added even more verses. Her part could have been longer if they wanted to, but I guess they were just we just need this many lines from you, and that's...
Well, then it would be entirely her song, though. It would be like her song if they added more, I think.
Yeah, I'm still hoping they might make an extended version or something that has more rap from BTS in it, because I think it could do that. You can have 4 or 5 minute songs, and that doesn't even seem that long. This song is still in the 3-minute area, even with her extra rap in it. BTS does benefit from this collab because they're always trying to work on the US market and get other audiences that haven't heard of them before, and they probably don't have tons of fans that are her fans, rap fans. They might, not everybody is into K-pop or pop, and they just listen to their one genre. So I think this could definitely help BTS. But do you think this helps Megan Thee Stallion in this collab?
Yeah, anytime you collaborate with an artist that's bigger than you, that's good, right? You get more exposure, even though she's plenty exposed, pun intended.
Yeah, I think her status right now is she's really big, but she's mostly big in the US, and I don't think she has tons of international fans.
Oh, no, just different demographics might open up to you.
No, that's true.
I think it can't hurt. I don't think it can hurt. I mean, back in the day, this kind of thing could hurt. Like a rapper, you even need street cred, right?
Right.
If back in the day Eminem did a collaboration with NSYNC, people would not respect him anymore. They'd say, "What are you doing?"
Oh, that's true.
He would never do that. It doesn't matter how many people he could quote unquote reach, right? But that's not a concern anymore. There's no such thing as street cred, as far as I can see. Is there? Everybody is willing to collaborate with everybody.
Remember Eminem had some kind of conflict with Mariah Carey, and then later we find out like they hooked up. I was like, what?
Yeah, it might have been all fake. See?
That's crazy. But yeah, if she collabed with him, people would have questioned that. Like the Eminem fans have been like, what are you doing?
Right. So it can't hurt.
And I think one thing that fans are hoping that, like, they got really excited about this. Like, we didn't even know this was going to be happening. Like, no one heard anything about another Butter remix. So I think this gets people energized, and they're going to want to stream it a lot and buy it and put Butter back at top of Billboard for various reasons, because I think they want to put it back at number one. So if you're not in the US, you may not have heard the whole story about Megan Thee Stallion and her issues with her label, because that's how everybody found out about this song coming out, is because of the court filings, which are public. If you have a lawsuit and then it's going to be discussed in court, then that paperwork becomes public information. So I guess somebody somewhere found out that this was happening, and then they read through it, and it's like, oh, this is what she's trying to do, is she's trying to get this remix out there, because apparently her label was preventing her from moving forward with it. And it was reported by TMZ that her label, 1501 Entertainment, was trying to prevent her from releasing the Butter remix. And they had all sorts of reasons, and they were trying to say, like, we don't think this will be good for her career. But people don't think that was a real reason. Like, who would think that? Like, oh, this is working with BTS would be bad for someone's career? Like, who thinks that? Like, you'd have to be really, like, not paying attention to the music industry right now if you think that. So, but probably the real reason was the label was trying to get money from Big Hit to release it. And they wanted the money to go directly to them and not to the artist. Like,
right.
they wanted $100K from Big Hit. It's like, give us this money or we're going to stop the song from coming out. And, of course, as an artist, Megan Thee Stallion doesn't want obstacles in the way of her releasing music. And she seems to have a problem with her label. Like, she signed with them and it's very, like, lopsided, and the label takes a lot of her money and give her very little advance. Usually, like, you get a big advance, especially if you're talented. I think she was, like, known at the time. Like, she already had, like, some songs out there. But I don't know why she signed with this label. Like, that's one of my questions. Like, why would you sign with someone who writes such a bad contract? So, I mean, that's one of my questions. And I don't know how, like, did she have any other options? Like, could she have signed with somebody else?
Well, sometimes you get bad financial advice.
Yeah, or you think, like, well, this is my only option. I better just sign this right now, and so I can, get started with my career. But yeah, so for like a day on Twitter, this was all being discussed, is about this court case and how Megan Thee Stallion was trying to get the ruling from the judge so that she could release this song. And fortunately, the judge ruled in her favor. And so right after that, Hybe released a statement talking about, yes, there is a Butter remix, and, they're acting like nothing happened. It's like perfectly normal, like, release. But I'm sure they were waiting for all of that to be resolved. And it was very last minute, because it's all happening 2 days before it's supposed to be released. So it's like pretty shocking that it came down to the wire. And it was kind of surprising, some of the details that were in those documents, because it seemed like Big Hit was really fighting for, their usual terms, which is like when they do a collab, they negotiate, like, well, we'll do a collab on your song, and then they'll do a collab on our song, and they like a swap. And also the money goes to the artist and not the label. Like, that seems to be their normal deal. Not that I'm like an expert or anything, but that's what it seemed like people were saying. And 1501 didn't want that. They just wanted, like, money going to them. So that's pretty crazy. It's like there's labels that work against their artists. Like, how does that happen? It's like, wouldn't you be more successful if you just let her make music and, both of you benefit? But, I don't know why these things are structured that way, or they think that's a good business model. But yeah, there's all sorts of, like, messed up things happening in the American music industry. And maybe this is one of the few times that we can hear about that.
mean, bad deals are very typical, you know? It's not uncommon.
It's easy to take advantage of like up and coming artists. It's like just trap them into something, like get them to sign a contract and they don't really like read through it. So I just think it's crazy that we didn't even find out about this new remix that everyone's excited about now until this court case came out. Like we didn't find out the normal way of like the labels releasing teasers and announcing it themselves. We had to find out through the news, through TMZ. So I think that's crazy. You know, that's what happens, I guess, if you're big hit and you have to work with American artists sometimes. Like this stuff will leak out and sometimes not through different sources. But what do you think is going to happen with her label in the future? Like they seems to be not working with her very well. Like she probably should get a different label if she's going to continue.
She's sued them twice, right?
Right.
Obviously, she's not going to continue with the label.
I guess she's kind of stuck with them for the moment, but
it will just go as long as it has to.
Yeah. And especially, she's won Grammys at the last awards, so she should be able to get a better deal from the next place she signs with. But I think a lot of ARMY noticed that the BTS lawyers are really trying hard. Like there's emails that were even printed that were released in this, and it showed how the big hit lawyers are really trying to make this happen, and they were trying to make it so that the money only goes to the artists and not go to the label, because I think they could see what 1501 was trying to do, and they were like, oh no, that's not really fair. This is our usual method of collabs. And people noticed that the deal that they set up, that means that BTS could feature on a future Megan Thee Stallion song. So I mean, that could probably be any time, but that's something to remember for the future.
I don't think that their main concern was whether it was fair to Meg Thee Stallion. I don't think that's their concern. Their lawyers, their primary responsibility is to Hybe. Hybe's responsibility is not to her, whether or not she makes the money that is deemed fair. I don't know exactly what their reasoning was. It might be they didn't want to set a bad precedent. Like if their typical arrangement is X, they don't want to move off of X because it sets a bad precedent for future collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
Were fans, was that their interpretation, that the BTS lawyers wanted to do what's fair for Meg Thee Stallion?
Yeah, they don't want to contribute to like a corrupt system.
No, total BS. I don't think they care. Let's just put it this way. If I hired a lawyer to represent my interests and they acted in a way to represent whether or not an artist that's not even mine or in my company was treated fairly, I would fire that lawyer. Because you're responsible. You have zero obligation. That's not your job. Your job is to represent my interests and my interests alone. Maybe Hybe has an interest in keeping that sort of arrangement for their own benefit, right? Like maybe they just want to keep this precedent of this type of arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
If they move off of it this one time, then people will keep demanding that they move off of it again and again and again. Maybe they don't want that. But I sincerely, highly doubt that their sole motivation was, or their motivation at all, was to craft a contract that was fair to Meg Thee Stallion. So if you're a lawyer doing that, why? So you want to create fair labor practices? Do that in your own time. Now, in this one situation, it might align with that, but that in itself is not their interest.
Yeah, I think it does align with what they wanted to do.
Okay, that's a different thing though.
I think Hybe and Big Hit has an image to maintain too. Like they don't want to make a deal and it's like, oh, her label, which everyone agrees is terrible and like bad people. Like, they don't want to make a deal that's like, well, this collab, that label got a bunch of the money and Megan Thee Stallion got very little. Like they don't want to look like they're profiting and like shortchanging these other artists that they're working with. They don't want like Megan Thee Stallion to be bitter with them in the future, you know? Like they don't want that happening, like bad blood.
Yeah, and that makes sense because the contract with her will run out and maybe they want to collaborate with her in the future and they don't want to maybe look like they're contributing to this, some would say, predatory contract or whatever. But again, that would be serving Hybe's interest. That's protect our image, right? It's not, hey, go be a savior for people in bad contracts.
Well, I think they might have a hard time signing a deal that was so disadvantageous for the artists they're working with, because they claim to be like, we're for artists for healing, and like we let the artists express themselves creatively. That's their image, so they wouldn't want to contribute.
So in other words, the lawyer's mandate would be to preserve the image of Hybe, right?
But it's because they believe that too.
Okay, they're not out there just doing things for goodwill. You know, it's not charity.
Well, they know these communications could be public someday, so it's like they weren't in the email saying like, we'll do whatever it takes to get it done. You know, it's like, we don't care what Megan Thee Stallion wants. From the emails and what was like official, and I'm sure they were aware, like, oh, this might be released someday. It sounded like they were trying to be fair to the artists. But I mean, these are lawyers, so they know.
That just tells me their lawyers are smart.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell me their lawyers are acting out of altruism. They don't want to move off the way they do things. For various reasons, they like contracts this way and not that way. I think it's smart. Probably they're looking at the long money and not the short money. There's other companies looking at the short money. How much money can they extract from Megan Thee Stallion before the contract ends? Whereas maybe Hybe is thinking about long-term collaborations into the future, right? If you mistreat your business partners, you probably won't have long-lasting business relationships with them. That's probably along the lines of what they're thinking, which is smart. Which is smart business, but it's not altruism. It is, at the end of the day, rooted in self-interest.
A recent Billboard article published on August 26 called Inside the Business of BTS and the Challenges Ahead angered fans with some of the questions in the interview. The article started out as a typical profile, and it talks about the members and how their career took off and their success on Billboard, and it also goes into talking about enlistment and what their future with Hybe might look like. But later in the interviewer asked them about chart manipulation, and it seemed to focus on the way that fans often organize mass buying and mass streaming to help BTS get to the top of the charts. And I think people were upset because they were framing like BTS chart success as controversial, and they're saying like, some people say it's manipulation. Who's saying that? That one guy that wrote that article that we talked about like a couple episodes ago, he was the one talking about that. And so they're like, some people are saying that this is manipulation, and they didn't like that RM was directly asked about this as if he's responsible for what the fans are doing. Here's the part of the article that people didn't like. It says, so these efforts of mass buying have buoyed the group's singles as they sail to the top of the charts, despite BTS's weaker streaming numbers and radio airplay than some of its pop contemporaries. And then RM says, it's a fair question says RM, of allegations that ARMY's work amounts to chart manipulation. Quote, but if there is a conversation inside Billboard about what being number one should represent, then it's up to them to change the rules and make streaming weigh more on the ranking. Slamming us or our fans for getting to number one with physical sales and downloads, I don't know if that's right. It just feels like we're easy targets because we're a boy band, a K-pop act, and we have this high fan loyalty. So people didn't like that he was questioned about that, and I think that's a fair criticism because I never see Billboard ask tough questions to any Western artists. Like, they never have these interviews where like people are asked uncomfortable questions to like Ariana Grande or, you know, Justin Bieber or whoever else. Is like, do you think you guys did chart manipulation or your fans are doing that? It's like they don't get asked stuff like that, even though, you know, some Western artists are rumored, or even it seems like they're using ways to get to the top that are cheating. They're using like payola, or they're, you know, they have their methods of getting to the top, and it's like they don't get questioned about that directly, but it's okay to just question BTS. Like, I just feel like that's kind of a rude thing to ask in an interview.
Well, number one, I think it's, first of all, I don't read all Billboard articles, and you probably don't either. So maybe, do they ask these questions of other people? I can't say for sure. I don't know. Maybe they do. I think it's fair to say that I don't think it's just that one Billboard writer that mentioned this controversy, right? I don't think that's true. I think fans of other groups have mentioned it. So it's fair to say that other fans have accused you of this, right? I think that is true. You do see some complaints from other fans. Are they major? I don't know. I think RM's answer was perfect. He acknowledges a fair question, right? But he made the very important point of, is it manipulation? Well, it follows the rules. So if you think that this is not a fair representation of quote unquote popularity or what Billboard should represent, then it's up to Billboard to change the rules, right?
Right.
Like, if you don't think that this type of album sales or album sales on a Wednesday of like this 10th version of a song should count, or whatever it is you think that is not a fair representation, then you should write your rules in such a way that those are not counted. BTS doesn't write those rules. Billboard writes those rules, right? You write the rules. So if it's not manipulation. That's the word manipulation implies unfair or underhanded way of dealing with it.
Or like it wasn't supposed to end up.
Or
with
you're not following
like
the rules or something like that, right? People who, and even the word, I read the article, even the word like they exploited loopholes. Like, what do you mean? They followed the rules.
There's no like small print or whatever
like,
that they knew about that no one knew.
Nobody says like a lawyer who reads the case law closely and wins the case based on that is exploiting loopholes. It's not loopholes, it's the law. If you want the law to act differently, or have a different effect, or be different entirely, that's incumbent upon the people who write the laws, not incumbent upon the people who are lawyers, right? They're there to win cases by reading the law closely. They didn't write the laws, right? Just like fans didn't write the rules, They follow the rules. The article admits that all of it is above board, meaning no rules are broken. Mm-hmm. There's no rules broken, so they just read them closer and they approach it with a fanaticism, and and they quote unquote manipulate it. But they didn't manipulate. They just, here's the problem. Billboard, their initial goal or raison d'etre is to capture the organic popularity of a thing, right? That's what they would like the Billboard chart to mean. They would like it to represent the organic popularity of a thing. And when fans know the rules inside out and they're super motivated, they can create results that don't represent the organic results, right? Mm-hmm. But that's on you to write the rules more precisely, right? This reminds me of, this is like going to be really nerdy and very few people understand, but I used to play fantasy sports a ton. Right? I don't play them anymore. They're a waste of time. Kids, don't do it. It's a total waste of time. But I used to play them a lot. I used to play with my friends, used to play with strangers, used to play with for money, used to play for not for money, like all sorts of things. I play in many, many leagues every year. Well, in certain leagues, like basketball and hockey leagues, I figured out, and this was way back when, before it was well known that this was the good strategy, right? I figured out that most people would draft a team and just play that team, roughly that same team for the whole year, and say, this is my team, let's see how it performs, right? Well, I figured out that there's no reason to keep all the players on your roster, and basketball and hockey players play at maybe 2 times a week at different times, right? So I would just cut the players that are not playing that day and add players that are playing. Even if my players were quote unquote good, I would cut them. I would only keep maybe 2 or 3 players, like the really, really good ones, right? Everybody else are just cut and then pick up a new person. And then the next day I'd cut all of them and then pick up whoever was playing that day, mm-hmm. right? And then fit whatever I was looking for, like whatever categories I would need to score in that day. And I would just totally dominate the competition because obviously even if my players on average were inferior, it didn't matter because they played more often than other players, right?
So the other teams are holding on to their star players, but then they don't play every day.
They didn't want to let go of people who are quote unquote good. But I was able to more precisely and mathematically determine who is actually really good and I need to hold on to, and who is not better than the replacement stats of a person playing every day, mm-hmm. right? And by person playing every day, that's no single person. Obviously, that means that's a rotating roster of people. And I would get more stats because I had more guys playing more games. Well, people didn't like this because I was dominating them and sometimes money was on the line. And B, it kind of felt like it was breaking the spirit of the game. But in my opinion, there's no spirit of the game. The spirit of the game is to win and to follow the rules while doing so. And I did both of those things. I would say a majority of people were upset because it felt like manipulating, right? It felt like a loophole. It's not a loophole.
Like you were getting the top winning in a different way than they thought should be.
Now, if you don't want that sort of thing to be allowed, there's easy ways to do it. Like you could just make like a transaction limit, right?
Right, like you can't switch out people more than once every.
And in fact, in later years, the default was to have a transaction limit, precisely because my system grew very popular and people didn't like playing with it, right? And that's fine. Now you change the rules, and that's no longer the game. But as long as it's in the rules, that's not cheating, that's not manipulation. That's just one group of people being smarter about going about their goals than you are. And you just kind of heard about it because you didn't put that much energy into it. You didn't read the rules that closely. I find the idea that there is such a thing as quote unquote organic popularity, I think that's bunk as well. Basically, Billboard is saying that real popularity is breadth of popularity, right? Mm-hmm. The number of people who say they're a Taylor Swift fan or Justin Bieber fan, that's popularity. They don't think that a smaller number of people who say they're BTS fans but have a much higher intensity, they don't agree that that's quote unquote as popular, right?
Right.
But I don't agree with that at all, because look at the other popularity contests that we run in this world that matters, that really matters. Elections, political elections, right? Mm-hmm. Intensity is very important and matters quite a bit. You can have fewer people quote unquote support you, but if those people have a much higher intensity, then you'll win because those people actually come out to vote for you. That's a valid way of measuring popularity, isn't it? And in fact, in the most important popularity contest there is, it totally matters. It decides many, many elections. It's probably going to decide an election that's coming up for us right now, which is California recall election. There's a lot of people who think that our governor is going to get recalled, even though I guarantee you, if you ask most people, do you like him? Do you support him? Most people would say yes. But as far as the people who are actually going to go vote, very likely most of the people who are actually going to vote don't support him. They're against him. So the intensity of that group is going to beat the shallow support of the larger group.
The no people are very intense about it.
Yes, they're going to come and vote. That's the same situation. But basically what Billboard is saying is, oh, that's not real popularity. It doesn't count. It's not real? Well, this guy's going to lose his job as governor. Is that real or not? That's real, right? Or I don't know that he's going to lose it. It's very possible. Who's going to actually bother to vote?
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
It seems like kind of 50-50 right now.
So just like that, you can say that you're a Justin Bieber fan, but are you going to do all the things that a BTS fan is willing to do to push his numbers? No, you're not. Why is it that 3 shallow fans should count more? As a, normative argument, why should those 3 fans, shallow fans, count more than the one intense BTS fan? Why? Well, one argument is that it's more people. It's more people, but that's only one metric. That's only one way of measuring fandom, isn't it? Of measuring popularity.
Right. Well, they don't even know for a fact. I mean, we know because it's like, okay, fans say like, oh, I bought it 10 times or whatever. Like, we know that's the case. But like, Billboard is just looking at numbers. They're looking at, here's how many sales. It's like...
And streams.
Sales and streams. But nowhere does that say, well, it's like, 10 per person or something, or 1 per person. Like,
there are rules, and I don't want to get into...
is just the total number. No,
there are different rules, like where you bought it from, whether you're still counted. The iTunes store counts it differently. And of course the BTS fans know all these rules inside and out, right? And so they behave in a way that maximizes their impact. And you can say that there's not 100 BTS, but let's say, round number, there's 100 BTS fans in the world, and there's 200 Olivia Rodrigo fans, even though I don't think this is true, but let's just, for the sake of argument. And the Olivia Rodrigo fans just sort of listen casually, right? And 100 BTS fans, they do everything in their power to make sure they get ahead. Can you really say for sure that Olivia Rodrigo is more quote-unquote popular just because 200 people sort of have a token affinity for her?
Right.
Does that really make you more popular? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so. And I
really don't think so.
That's why they haven't changed that part of it. That's why Billboard has left sales and streams just the way it is.
Whether it was rude to ask them, I don't think it's rude to ask them. I think that if it's a thing that exists in this world, a journalistic piece that's not just like a fluff piece, right? If it's a fluff piece, then yeah, it's rude. Because like if it's, there's this famous clip, you can look it up, where like, how when actors promote movies, they do junkets, and that just means they get interviewed by a ton of people, and they just ask dumb questions.
They ask the same basic questions.
Yeah, it's like they ask dumb questions, and it's just to promote the movie, right? And that's the agreement. It's just like, we give you access, just ask some fluff questions.
It's not supposed to be like anything crazy happening.
Yeah, you're not a journalist. You're just here to be part of the advertising machine, right? And that's why you're here. You have access. Fair enough. But I think there was like one interview where like, it was Robert Downey Jr. or somebody else. But sometimes in these junkets, people ask real questions, and that is rude because there's an understanding that you're not here to ask rude or real journalistic questions. You're just here to do fluff, right? So in that situation, you're breaking that unspoken contract. So it is rude. But I'm not sure that's what was happening here. Like, I'm not sure if there was any any fair expectation of BTS that this is a fluff piece. If it's a real journalistic piece and you agree to it, then you agree to be asked tough questions, right?
That's what I was wondering, because was this something that Billboard was like, we're going to do this interview and I guess let's ask them, one thing that's a hot take or whatever. Right. Let's ask them one thing like that, and that way it's like a real interview and not just like a People magazine profile.
So if they agree to a real journalistic interview, then it's a real issue. It's fair game, right? It would be rude if they asked something like off topic or personal, like how many sexual partners have you had, R.E.M., or something like that, right? But if it's a real issue that is pertinent to the group and is public, it's fair to ask about it. I don't think that they need to apologize. I saw that hashtag was trending. I don't think they need to apologize, especially if this was a real journalistic interview they agreed to. And I'm going to guess it was, because if it was meant to be like a fluff piece and then they blindsided them with this, that's really bad form on their part. They're not the New York Times. Like, why would they have such hard-hitting journalism this one time, right?
Right. Well, we'll know if they get cut off from the future. Like, if they never do an interview with them again, then we'll see.
Right. So, and also, before you do interviews, often you will come to an agreement about what can be talked about.
Right.
That's very typical as well. So if they asked, but it was not on the list of agreed upon topics, then yes, that's rude. That's out of bounds. But if it was, or perhaps even if BTS didn't specify, then no, it's not. And there's no need to apologize. And I think it's a fair thing, because it's a thing that's out there. It's a topic. People are talking about it.
There are journalists, there's music journalists, and there's people in the industry that do have a problem with BTS being at the top. And I don't think it's like a race thing or xenophobia or whatever. I just think there's some people out there that don't like that they're at the top, or how they got there, or that they're like...
That's possible.
That they have like so much popularity and they're quote unquote not supposed to. So then they get questioned more about stuff like this. I don't see them asking other people. The one thing that they said was, BTS typically releases multiple versions of a single. Like, they'll have a digital and a physical and like a vinyl and a cassette and blah, blah, blah. But, a lot of artists do that. Like, Taylor Swift does that. A lot of people do that. I don't see anyone saying like, hey, Taylor, is that chart manipulation that you're selling like 10 versions of Willow or whatever? And it's like one fan could buy 10 of those and then that counts all the same. I mean, I know if they asked Taylor Swift, then maybe she would like never interview with them again. So they don't feel like they can ask the A-list stars about stuff like that, but they feel okay asking BTS because they're gonna just answer the question and be polite about it, So I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's just like they don't ask these tough questions to Western artists, and maybe it's because their people are gonna be more strict about stuff like that. It's like, don't ask that question, or they'll say like, edit that out or whatever. Like, we didn't say you could ask that. But does the other artists do similar things as BTS is doing? But they're just kind of framing BTS as being like, you're the only ones, like stretching the rules here. On August 23rd, a Korean netizen claiming to be Lucas's ex-girlfriend, and this is Lucas from NCT and Wavy, who is in the SM label. Lucas's ex-girlfriend uploaded a post on her social media and accused him of gaslighting and being a gold digger. So after that happened, she released a lot of information talking about this and how they hooked up, and then, she bought him these expensive gifts, and he basically used her and then took off, and then at the same time he was like meeting up with other fans and the same exact thing was happening. The next day, I think it was, some other 2 Chinese netizens released information that said he did the same thing with them. And, at the end of a couple of days, it was like 5 women total were saying like, I was seeing Lucas and then I bought him gifts and then all this happened and then he like ditched me. And it's like all this drama has been happening. This has all been happening on like Weibo, is where they've been publishing a lot of this information, and they've all had like receipts, like chat logs and like pictures of him like hanging out after hours or whatever. And it seems like a pretty huge scandal.
Yeah.
For an idol.
He apologized. He vaguely apologized for behavior, right?
Yes.
Without admitting anything. And they suspended him or delaying, or he's punished, essentially.
Yeah. And so after a couple of days of that being circulating, on August 25th, SM released a statement to say he's halting activities to reflect on his actions.
Mm-hmm.
And he was supposed to have a single coming out on the 25th with Hendery, which is another member of whatever groups he's in. And he was going to have a single called Jalapeno that's now on hold indefinitely. So I was like, wow, that's serious. He's like, they won't let him release music right now. And I think it's important to note that he's 22, he was born in Hong Kong, and he's Thai and Chinese. And so Wavy was formed to be a Chinese group, basically, right?
Right.
And so this is pretty serious because his Chinese fan club decided to disband over all this. They're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Clearly they believe all of this happened, and they think,
well, he admitted to some wrongdoing. So
yeah, he said his behavior.
Right.
So,
and there was pictures which backed up most of the claims.
Yeah, I don't think anything was like debunked really.
No. Well, I read the articles, so perhaps I don't have all the details here, but essentially what happened is he was a jerk and he was sleeping with a lot of different girls, asking them for gifts, lying to them, and cheating on them.
Right.
Okay. I mean, this is going to be one of those culture clashes. I mean, as an American, I'm thinking, and so?
Right.
Like a good-looking, famous 22-year-old guy, I would be shocked if he wasn't like that. I'll be totally honest with you. Okay? First of all, he is stupid. He's sleeping with some of these are fans, right?
But they were all fans because he met them from
like, hey,
fan meetings and stuff.
You're cute and you're a fan. Let's have sex. Like, no, that's not a good idea, man. But again, some people are stupid. When they say he was gaslighting, I think that refers to him leading people on and saying, this is a real relationship. I'm not sleeping with other women, correct?
Or he would say, like, you're the only fan I've ever, like, been with, you know? Like,
Okay. I mean, they call it gaslighting. I call it just, like, lying to a person. That's just lying, right? No crime was committed. No one has accused him of a crime. So the police will not be involved. He was just a careless, reckless, stupid jerk, correct? Yeah, that's just totally normal here. I wouldn't be bothered by that at all. I mean, I believe that a lot of the celebrities that I follow are jerks. I'm not under the illusion that they're not, you know? So it wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't stop watching their movies or anything, or consuming their content. But again, this is one of those things where you have to respect the cultural difference. This is obviously, it is a big deal over there.
Yeah, it's very taken very seriously.
His fan club broke up, you know, and I'm not trying to say that they should not think it's a big deal. Just like when there's dating scandals and I'm really scratching my head, like, well, you're going to stop being this person's fan because they are a normal human being that has relationships? That's puzzling to me. But we are not from the same culture, right? Not the same country, not the same culture, not the same fan culture. It's different. And he knows what culture he's a part of. He knows the rough operating rules. He knows the guidelines. He knows this won't be viewed well. So he still did all these things, knowing that, right?
Right.
I don't think his career is over since, again, no crime was committed. He's just a huge jerk, right? And a stupid one at that. But you know what? I don't think people lose their careers over being a stupid jerk. Just generally, I don't think so. Not here, for sure. I mean, guys, we still listen to Chris Brown music. Okay? I do. I don't even think twice about it, right? In case you're wondering what I mean by that, Chris Brown was guilty of, like, domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like with multiple women, too.
Yeah, he beats women. I think that you can even say that without, being sued or anything, because it's established. It happened. We still listen to his music, guys. People openly say they're fans of him. So what's going on? And that's one situation where I think that probably we shouldn't be fans of him, but whatever, okay, right? This guy, in comparison to that, and then again, this is not a fair comparison because they come from different cultures. They have to adhere to different rules, okay? That's just reality. That's facts of life. But you can see how it wouldn't impress or bother me to hear that. I thought, oh, there's some juicy, from when I first read it, it's like, oh, it's some sort of juicy controversy, right? And I was really let down. It was really anticlimactic for me.
Well, it's like, okay, this scandal to me, it sounds a lot more serious than bullying because it goes to his image. It attacks that. But then,
bullying attacks a person's image too.
People have been kicked out of groups and fired from
bullying.
their companies for bullying.
Right.
But this seems like even more serious. But from what I'm reading, it sounds like SM.
I think they're going to keep them.
They try to keep their people even with
and I think that's
scandal.
smart. Just ride it out.
Like they'll just keep him like in the background for a while.
Irene still has a job.
Right.
Why should she be fired? And
like it's been a year with that.
We're not talking about that anymore, are we? No.
Not really. Like they're coming back.
Yeah. I don't hear people talking about it too much. And I think that Korean culture is, for better or worse, slowly becoming more Western. That's sort of where Korean culture is headed. You can imagine, okay, the guy cheats on his girlfriends, he does dumb stuff like sleep with fans, but no crimes were committed. Oh, and he badmouths his coworkers. Like, so what? Is that so bad? But it is bad. It is bad in the Korean culture where, their image is more important. That's why I think bullying is such a big deal. Your character just matters so much more. Character just doesn't matter that much over here. So it was anticlimactic for me. Again, I'm not judging people. I'm not telling them that, oh, you shouldn't care about this sort of stuff. Why are you caring? You're just being anal about this. Why are you caring about this? Hey, you care about what you care about, right? And it's your right as a customer, as a fan, to withdraw your support for whatever reason, because he's a jerk who cheats on women, or maybe because he was a bully when he was 11 years old. All valid reasons. Actually, you don't even need a valid reason. You can stop being someone's fan for any reason you like. Fine. But I think you'll see less of this as time goes forward.
Well, don't you think SM will look at how the Chinese fans reacted with disbanding their fan club and all that? Because he's meant for the Chinese market. Like, that's what he's used for. Like, maybe they'll kick him out of Wavy, but then keep him in the other groups.
Maybe. They're going to... Listen, he was in Super M.
Yeah.
He's obviously one of the more prominent people, right? So I don't think they're getting rid of him.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, maybe they'll kick him out of Wavy because that's meant for China, but then keep him in Super M and NCT, which are more
Is China
US.
more of is the Chinese market more of a stickler for like morals and behavior? That surprises me. I thought Korea would be. That's weird. Is it? I don't know. I'm not. I don't live in those countries. The other thing that shocked me about it is that he appears to be poor. Does he really have to beg these girlfriends to buy him a jacket?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because did he do that because he couldn't afford to buy these things, or he just didn't want to be caught by the manager? Because he said the manager would see his credit card purchases and would see if he bought whatever. So is that why, or is it because he didn't have the money to just be buying expensive things?
Even if it's a situation where that's really good insight into the shop. That's really good shop insight. That's really good industry insight, right? Does their manager look at their credit card balance?
That seems very invasive.
Yeah, it's like the level of control is surprising me, and it's very illuminating. Like, is that really how it works? You can see how, going back to our conversation about how American companies, maybe they want to adopt the K-pop model. I can see how they'd like it, because if this is the type of control you have over your artists, hell yeah, as a company, I'm all for it, right? And you always want more control as opposed to less, right? Mm-hmm. But even when Ariana Grande was on her first contract, I can't imagine that any of her managers or handlers would have the ability to tell her to not buy a jacket.
Right. It's like, no, what did you buy? I'm looking at the statement. What is this?
Statement.
What costs $10,000 here?
She'd tell you to fuck off, you know? Right?
Right.
Who are you? Right? It's her money. What? Is it his money or is it not his money? Does he have his own money? These are all good questions. The guy is in Super M. It would sort of imply that, I know he's on his first contract and he's young. He's only 22. But still, is your first contract that bad that you have to beg girls to buy you a jacket? That's interesting to me.
I did kind of feel bad for him on that aspect of, he had to do things in secret. Like, he has to try to get away from the manager in order to see these girls, and he can't put stuff on his credit card, otherwise they might see. It's like, that seems really stifling. It's
a good look into the insides of the industry. I think that companies exert a ton of control, and and I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. We have extolled like some of the what we think are the positive effects of this sort of tight control companies have, right? We feel like the standards are much higher when it comes to performance, dancing, whatever. They have to practice long hours. You can see it in the product that you get, right? You can't both love that product and say, well, I love the high standards of this product, and also say, well, the methods that they use to achieve it, I'm totally against that. Well, then, it's you can't be both. It doesn't mean that I will accept any methods to achieve, the high standards in the product, but I have to be open to accepting some of it at least, right? I know that they have more control. I know that that's part of why the product has higher standards, right? How much of that control I can, morally stomach, that remains to be seen, and I don't know exactly how much they exert. I would hope that they have some freedom and they get to, they're paid fairly and things like that. They can spend their own money, I would hope. And not just on their second contract either, on their first contract.
Right. And that was an idea that I had. Like, I don't know the actual reason why he had the girls pay for stuff. Maybe he was just trying to get extra stuff out of these girls because they're such loyal fans. Like, oh, okay, well,
perhaps,
buy me this. Like, maybe he was just using them as an ATM.
Right.
But I also thought, well, maybe it's because he couldn't use his own credit card because it would be caught.
I think that it must be because he isn't paid very much or he doesn't have much control over his money.
Right.
Because if I had plenty of money, I wouldn't use anybody for an ATM. It wouldn't even occur to me to try to do that, right?
I mean, yeah, that would be kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. I wouldn't even want to ask. It's hard to ask people for stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not for him, but I'd say most people, it's hard to ask for stuff. Go ahead. If you think it's easy, go ahead and go ask somebody to buy you something right now. The last time I asked people to buy me something, I was like a kid and like asking for toys or something, right? So that's my opinion on it. It's very illuminating as far as how the industry works. As far as the actual controversy, I don't think it's a big deal.
I mean, he did what Western artists do all the time, like hooking up with multiple women, and some of them are fans. I know Justin Bieber does that.
Yeah. Justin Bieber has slept with plenty of groupies.
There's blind items that up and down. And
you don't even need the blind items. Give me a break.
Rock stars do this all the time, 100% of the time.
Yeah. How many times have you heard stories about what goes on a tour bus?
Yeah.
Come on, guys. This is basically the same sort of behavior, right?
Right. Just taking advantage of fans that they adore you, they'll do whatever, right. And they'll throw themselves at you, and it's like, oh, okay, well, let's go then.
Right. So for Western sensibilities, no big deal. But at the same time, I respect that it's a different culture and they do care about it. Yeah,
that's why I think I've heard that Chinese fans, they tend to be the most loyal fans. So for them to actually take action, it's like, we're ending our fan club of Lucas. So that seems pretty serious. But we'll see what happens in the long run. Maybe they'll start up again or whatever after this all dies down.
Well, the good thing about K-pop is that the people are so replaceable. They'll just be fans of someone else. Mm-hmm. It's not like there isn't someone else or someone in the pipeline that's just the same as him, right?
SM has plenty of people.
Yeah.
They'll start the next
and they all
group.
Look kind of the same, so who cares, right? Oh, and doesn't NCT has 100 members? Just pick somebody else.
Doesn't they have
just go grab someone else.
25 people or something now. It's true. So Girls Planet 999. We talked about that a few episodes ago about what we heard the concept was going to be, and it's now been on 3 or 4 episodes. I've watched not all of them yet. They're very long. It's 2 hours each time.
Right.
I've watched almost 3 episodes at this point, but I haven't gotten to anything where people were eliminated yet. I don't think that's happened.
No one's been eliminated
yet. I think it's been a pretty good show so far and pretty interesting. It's kind of similar in production to how Produce is, just how people are interviewed and stuff like that.
Because it's Produce.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It just has more complicated
in the same studio,
rules.
It's Mnet, it's the same studio. Don't they use the same building? Right? I saw someone say it's the same building. Right? They just named it something else to escape the scandal.
Right.
Right?
So I've watched almost 3 episodes. So I think I'm kind of familiar with the people now. I'm getting some, faces to names. But that's a really important part of this show because there's so many people. There's still 99 people competing right now. And another thing that makes it really confusing is all the different groupings of people. So it's you got K group and C group and J group. And then you have all the cells they're in, the 3 people's cells. So you got to remember who's with who, and then they performed. Their first performance was with like other people from their same country. So then that was like different groupings there. And then in, episode 2 and 3, they had performance groups, which is like, all the different people mixed together in groups of like 10 or whatever it was. So it's like, it's like so many different categories. You have to try to remember people's names.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember some of the people, so that's just...
I'm starting to remember them.
Yeah. Do you have any like favorites so far?
Just like G1 from Cherry Bullet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, like I said before, it's irritating that they debuted and they have to go on the show.
Right. And I remember from the...
Why don't you just focus on Cherry Bullet?
From the intro of one of them, there's 3 Cherry Bullet members in there, but one of them was talking about why they're there. And it's like, well, why are we here? Because we already debuted, and like maybe people are saying like, you're taking up a spot before these other people that are, trainees and haven't debuted yet, and they're talking about how COVID kind of took away a lot of their opportunities, and then now they're kind of struggling as a group to... I don't know the exact situation, but it sounds like, this is an avenue for them to be on stage, and maybe they can't as Cherry Bullet for whatever reason.
Right.
But I felt really bad. Like, a lot of them had stories like that where it's like, I've been training for many years and been trying to make it out there. And then when I saw like other people I trained with, they already debuted and they became ITZY, and it's like,
right.
Oh, it feels really bad to see, I'm still here and they're out there. I mean, that must be really like tough to see, especially if you believe in your own talent. So yeah, it's like there's can only be 9 people in the group, but I feel like there's so many people that are talented, and I feel bad for because their story of like they've worked so hard to get to where they are. But I mean, I guess they'll have other opportunities too, the people that don't make the group in the end.
No, not all of them. Like, some people just never make it. That's life, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a tough business.
But the editing is good at showing you the sob stories, right? It's almost, you do feel for the people, but you have to remember that some of it is maybe manipulative editing,
You think they played up some of the stories? Maybe
some of them, but no, I think probably it is heartfelt. Like, it is, people do work hard, right? And if you don't make it, it's tough. It's tough to see someone debut and you don't debut or whatever. But so I think the sob stories are real, but at the same time, there's just too many of them. You could have just nonstop sob stories on these things, right? Mm-hmm. And I also think this isn't anybody's last chance at anything. You can always keep trying. There's other. You can keep trying, and also at the end of the day, you have to have some perspective. If these girls quote unquote fail, what does it really mean? It means they fail to become an idol. Well, I mean, most of us fail to become idols, and not failed, but most of us are not, right? Yeah. So basically, all that means is they're doomed to a life of not being an idol. Well, but that's the majority of the world, right? Yeah. It doesn't mean they won't find happiness or fulfillment in their life, and a lot of these people are not even 20 years old. Yeah. So it's like they're 18, 19. Right. 17. It's sad, but it's not sad like your dog died, your family died, and oh, by the way, you have cancer. It's not that kind of sad. It's more like, oh, yeah, that is pretty unfortunate. I feel bad for you. It's just like, you can't do this dream that you had. You didn't get a dream job. But you know what? I didn't get my dream job. And I'm not acting bitter or anything like that. Like, just because I didn't get my dream job, other people can't have theirs. I'm not saying that. Right. Right? And in case you're wondering, my dream job was to be like a ninja assassin. Oh, I thought you were going to say like NFL coach, like or something. Like president of the United States or something? No. NFL coach? You have to play football to be an NFL coach. I guess my dream job was to play NFL. But then once I found out how difficult that is, like painful, physically painful, it wasn't such a dream anymore either. Like I didn't think that being shot up with painkillers every week was that cool. Not saying I was close to being one or anything like that, but in hindsight, that doesn't sound that awesome. So I have sympathy, but then let's have some perspective too. Yeah. It's just, okay, you didn't get your dream job. Yeah, I do feel for you. And it's definitely a show, and I'm sure the Mnet is trying to build a narrative for some of the girls and, draw in the sympathy from viewers. I do feel like there's still a very good chance that you'll have a productive and happy, fulfilling life, especially since you have some talent, obviously. you're all attractive girls. You're going to be attractive women, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's speak very frankly here. The world isn't exactly a horrible place for attractive women, okay? They do have lots of opportunities. Life tends to end up generally favorably for them, okay? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like and they grew up in a first world country. It's not like they're doomed or something if this doesn't pan out for them.
Mm-hmm.
So don't shed too many tears. But I do feel a little worse for the people who already debuted and have come back to this Mnet show.
Yeah.
Because it sort of feels like it's such a step backwards. It feels embarrassing. It feels humiliating almost. And I don't. It feels uncomfortable. And there's a great unease in me to see people humiliated. I don't like it. And it reminds me of this nightmare I have every year or so where. And I know a lot of people have this nightmare, and I know people think it means something, and I don't know exactly what it means, but I'll have this nightmare that I didn't actually finish all of my college credits, and I need to go back and finish something. Like someone will tell me, like, hey, you didn't actually graduate, you know that? I would say, what, really? What do I need to do? It's like, you need to go back and take these classes. Like, oh my God, really? It's a nightmare, right? I thought I was done with that. If I had to do it, it's not like it would be torture or anything, but there's like this humiliation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm done with that. I'm past that stage in my life. I thought I was done. That's how I feel when I watch them do this.
Yeah.
Other observations I have about Girls Planet, a lot of the Chinese girls are really super aggressive. Why?
Yeah, I think
it's a culture thing. I think they just sort of they want what they want and they say what they want. And I know that in the West, we would just admire that as empowered feminism or something. But remember, the Asian cultures are not the same. It seems a little distasteful in the context of Asian culture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They just sort of, they say what they want, aggressively, firmly. You know? Is it normal in Chinese culture now? I don't know.
It definitely feels like there's some differences with the C group versus the K group and the J group. Because, yeah, like you said, the Chinese trainees, a lot of them are very outspoken, and then they seem like they're the leader of a group. And it's like the K group and the J group, they seem more like members of a team. Like they're trying to get along, or they're more emotional about stuff. Like, oh, I'm upset I didn't get this part, or they're like more worried about their place.
Yeah, they seem more empathetic. They're just not as rough around the edges.
Yeah, the Chinese ones they're very blunt. They're very like, suck it up.
They don't have any interest in being feminine or cute, right?
Right.
And then when they do the like aegyo and the like typical K-pop stuff, they do it, but they just do it because it's what's required, right?
Right.
It feels like, okay, I'm just doing this as an act, and whereas it seems more genuine on the part of others. Yeah, it's just very interesting, and I'm not even saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. I chalk it up to maybe a cultural difference, but it's fascinating to see that play out, this cultural difference. It's just weird.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing some differences there in the groups. And like, I don't know how the voting is going to work at the very end. Like, are they really going to have 3, 3, and 3, or is it just going to be like whatever the top 9 votes? Like, if it happens to be like, more Koreans than others, then oh well, that's the group.
It's just going to be whatever Mnet wants.
Okay.
It's fixed again. I'm sure it's fixed. And
they'll figure
the rules are
out.
so obtuse. It's like, hey, if you win this competition, you get like 1,000 bonus points or whatever, and your cell gets booted out and you're booted out, but you can be saved and go to like a last chance or whatever, and like the second bracket or some loser's bracket or something like that, and the judges can save one person or something. It just sounds like there are very many ways for the judges to put who they want in.
Right, because it's still supposed to be voted out by cell, so then that should maintain the overall ratio, like equal numbers of everything.
But they can save certain people, I think, right?
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. There's so many rules put in place that it's clear that the reason why they're there is so that the judges can put who they want in the group. That's why. So if you think that you are going to really mold this group, you're wrong. And even if the judges don't meddle too much in it, they have a very easy way of manipulating your vote. They just control how much screen time people get.
Right. Like, people aren't going to vote for someone who's like barely on screen. Like,
If somebody's on screen constantly and they're shown in a good light, they get a good edit, of course they're going to get more votes, right? How are they not going to get more votes than a person that's not even on screen? Think about it. And they made no promise that people will get equal billing, equal screen time.
yeah.
And they shouldn't even get it because, like, for drama's sake, then some people have more interesting stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is also a very easy way for them to manipulate the vote. It's just going to be who they want to be in the group. And I don't know who they want in the group.
Yeah, I don't really know who they want either.
Well, you can kind of tell based on the edits.
Well, I can say who seems
Whoever's
to...
getting a lot of screen time and getting good edit, they want in the group.
They're showing the... I wrote down their names. They're showing Shen Xiaoting a lot. She's the Chinese number 1. And then the number 2 girl, they're showing her a lot too. Suri Kui.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want
They're
those two
showing
Chinese
her a
girls
lot.
in there for sure.
Those two.
And don't believe any, like, Shen Xiaoting has she's getting like bad comments and things like that.
Oh,
Don't
really?
believe any of that. Yeah, they are constantly saying things like, you need to step it up or you need to work harder on this and that. Yeah, but she's getting screen time. It means you like her.
Oh, okay.
You're just constructing a narrative, like a comeback kid narrative, right?
Right. Like, they don't want it to look like, well, she
Like,
had
nobody
no
likes the
issues.
narrative of this person's awesome from day one and they continue to be awesome and here you go, she's in your group.
Oh, right.
That's
'Cause
not compelling.
she was in that one group, and then the judges were like, oh, I thought this group that had so many top 9 people would be a lot better. And
Right.
they're like, oh, she wasn't blowing them away because she did the killer verse
Right.
in that song. But yeah, I think she's definitely one of the
They just
one of the
construct a
favorites.
narrative.
And then Chai Bing, they're showing her a lot. She's another Chinese one. And the girl who is number 1 for Japan, Azaki Hikaru,
Yeah.
they're showing her a lot.
They'll put her in there.
She's very small and cute, and she seems to be like really good at all the dancing and singing. Like, the Koreans, like, they're not standing out as much. I guess the Cherry Bullet girls and also Hooning Kai's sister, Hooning Bahi, I'm not sure how you say her name, but she seems very cute, and she looked like she'd be a very like matinee type in a group. And she's independent, so she doesn't have an agency trying to control her time or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure that would be an issue for like, others,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, and I don't know if that matters or not, because if you want this group to have time and like make albums and stuff and last longer than Eyes One, then
Well, Eyes One lasted a long time. Fair.
it was like 2 years or something.
It's longer than 1 year, right? I think Eyes One lasted a while.
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty successful for the time that they had. And then the girl from CLC, Yoojin, they're showing her a lot. And the girl who was number 1 for Korea, Kim Daeyeon, and then remember, like, she was ranked number 1, but then they didn't want to put her in the top 9, and the judges were like, oh, well, we thought you would get there anyway, so we didn't give you that. I was
It's
like,
just going to be what they want.
that's just kind of manipulation there.
Yeah,
'Cause
and it's constructing a narrative. And you can tell who they want based on the screen time. Even if it's negative screen time, by the way. Even if it's negative screen time, they want that person in that group.
yeah. If they're showing any of your story,
Right.
that's a good thing. Because they can always redeem you later. Like, they could just say, like, oh, this
Yeah.
person
It's like, wow, they improved so much.
worked hard.
Even though it kind of looks the same to me. Right? It's just going to be rigged. And you know what? I'm not even that bothered that it's rigged. At the end of the day, 16 was rigged. Turned out well anyway. We got twice, right? They could have done better. They could have put Somi in the group or whatever.
Right. That's probably the only mistake.
All right.
But yeah, rigging it so that certain people came back after being voted out, that's fine. Because, like,
Yeah.
it turned out that's good. They belong in twice.
So it doesn't really bother me. It's just entertainment. I could see how it bother people, though. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be bothered because they tell you that your vote counts. It sucks to be told your vote counts and it doesn't count, right? You bothered to go and vote and all that stuff.
I think it really depends just what the end result is. We'll see at the end of the season. If somebody like really unexpected somehow gets into the group, then people are going to be up in arms about that. Like, if it's 9 people that were popular the whole time, then it's like,
It's
oh,
not going to be
okay.
that. There's going to be some surprises.
Yeah,
I bet.
I'm sure. I'm sure at least one. Thank you to our guest, Morgan. You can find BTS Happy Hour on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcast platforms. New episodes weekly. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. follow BTS Happy Hour on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Weverse. You can also go to the website at btshappyhour.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional content. Until next time, this has been the BTS Happy Hour. Thanks for listening, and remember, make every hour a happy one.